Your dream is your destiny. Now, for most people, this rings true deep in our bones, or at least in your soul. So, what gives? Why is it so hard to get there? Because of 8 specific ways our parents can knock us out of alignment with it. You're listening to the Science and Spirit of Happy podcast, where we discuss the rational, strategic, and psychological methods, but also the deeper reasons and spiritual philosophy behind being happy down to the soul. Happiness isn't just hedonism. It's not even solely personal. Getting happy dramatically increases your effectiveness in every area, from business and finance to relationships. When we align with our own personal version of ideal, we end up not just happier, but healthier, more whole, more successful and richer, but even loving and loved. It's my opinion that getting happy for yourself is the absolute best way to serve the people in your life. I'm your host, Laura Lee Bowers, master healer and academic researcher. And this is another episode diving into the science and spirit of happy, a logical path to soul. Get it, yeah! Welcome back. It's Casual Friday at the Science and Spirit of Happy podcast, where we go through the whole season and wrap it up on the Friday of the season in a super casual way. So I'm wearing my normal clothes. This is actually my uniform at present. I had a really, really cute mom style when I first had my baby. Now he's a toddler. I just wear what is like comfy and cozy and, a little bit chic to run around after him. And I'm able to change multiple times a day. I'm wearing like my standard uniform. So this really is casual to me. This really is breaking it down and being a little bit more intimate with y'all. So we're talking about how to not be like your parents, right? We're breaking the cycle. We're disrupting the pattern. We're talking about generational healing here. Okay. We're talking about stopping the past from creating your future, because we know statistically this is what happens. The past creates our future. We're talking about personal growth. We're talking about strengthening our lineage, right? Becoming the better parents to, even if that's just to ourselves, which if you want to be a parent, this should be the first place to start. If you already are a parent, next season, I'm going to be talking about parenting. So, and what to do, if you already are a parent. But if you ever want to be a parent, parenting yourself is definitely the place to start. And if you don't want to be a parent, then, parenting yourself means that you can have whatever, the best parent in the world. You can have, the best friend in the world if you befriend yourself like that. So how to not be like your parents started in the personal power of clarity. So for everybody, first and foremost, the book that I've written, How to Not Be Like Your Parents, explains the entire process and includes activities to develop each of the personal powers. The membership, the Sustainable Dreams membership, is actually the framework that I use to explain this season and write the book. So the framework of the membership is what this season is based on. So the membership walks you through step by step each of these personal powers. So from month to month for an entire year, we go over these personal powers. So the way that it works is that the first month we go through the first mindset personal power. So the first personal power of the mind. And then the second month we go through the first personal power of the heart. And then the third month, the first personal power of the soul. And then the fourth month, the first personal power of the body. And then we come back up and we do the second personal power of the mind, the second personal power of the heart, the second personal power of the soul, spirit, energy, the second personal power of the body. And then in the last 4 months of the year, I teach you how the first personal power of the mind develops and bleeds into the second personal power, and how they develop one another, how they interact with one another. Because, and it goes through the 4 layers like that in the last 4 months of the year, because it's really, really important that we amalgamate these personal powers. I use some examples where, someone who has one personal power but doesn't have the other can really run into trouble. And it's not even just that they're lacking something, it's that the having a strength of one personal power without having the strength of the other accompanying personal power can actually be a hindrance to your life. So consider somebody who, has a lot of fierceness. They can feel all of their feelings, but they have no freedom to express it, or vice versa. They have the freedom to express their feelings, but they're not really tapped into how they genuinely feel, which means they have little empathy. So they have freedom to express all of their, emotions in like a wild way that is totally inconsiderate of anybody else and isn't actually getting to the real root of the trouble, right? If you're having negative emotions, without understanding like really where they come from or what's actually happening, can be really detrimental to relationships. But this is the same for all of the personal powers, but it's also not having all of the personal powers together. If you're lacking one personal power, it really detracts from all of the other ones. So, having that, that sense of freedom without the fierceness, it also, that person that is like out of control and really damaging relationships and not really getting to the root of their feelings, but expressing like wild ones, they're also, that really prevents them from gaining clarity. It really prevents them from making connections. It's totally impossible to live in comfort with yourself, to accept yourself and accept where you're at. Being confident, maybe you could get confidence in some ways, but you're going to have your confidence destroyed in other ways. And then the last personal powers, where we're living that dream life, the last physical personal powers, that's impossible. So that being said, it's really important to discuss them all together, right? It's really important to go through them all together for this purpose, because developing one without the others is, not only not productive, it can be unproductive, it can be destructive. However, the opposite is also true, which means that when we start to develop these personal powers, I use the term piggyback. They piggyback upon one another and they make each other exponentially more powerful. So as you're developing these personal powers, they start to snowball, and your own ability to create the life of your dreams, it just grows exponentially. Your ability just continuously improves by leaps and bounds. And the more that you develop, the more momentum you get, the bigger the snowball becomes, the stronger you are, the more power and energy you have to create this vision, and the easier it is, right? It's really hard to start getting a rock rolling down a hill, but once it's rolling, it's really easy to gain speed, to go wherever you want to go, right? To go really, really far. And that's what these personal powers working together really become. It's more like a vehicle that you can like drive around and whatever, but it's not like as determined as a stone, unless we're talking about the end point being your dream. And in that case, it really is like a rock running downhill, or more like a stream taking the path of least resistance towards the natural and totally automatic ends, which is, the ocean, your ocean. The water eventually meets the ocean, following the path of least resistance. That's how easy success can be using this. So we're going to run through the 8 personal powers so that you can get on board and you can have your success be as simple as, water running downhill. So the first personal power that we talked about is in episode 2. So the first episode of the season was going over just introducing the idea of breaking the cycle and breaking patterns. So the first personal power is actually the second episode, and they'll follow on. The second personal power is the third episode, etc. So the first personal power was clarity. It was getting clear about you. I explained a little bit about mindset and the lens briefly. You have a lens in each one of the sets, each one of the layers. So you have a mindset, HeartSet, SoulSet, BodiSet. I didn't get too deep into those. I discussed them a little bit in the book. I discussed them at length in the membership and in my courses for sure, because that's a very important facet. But the clarity belongs to the mindset. So the personal power of clarity is being able to see who you are, where you come from, and what you want and what's happening around you. The second personal power is connection. And this personal power is also of the mind, but it's connecting the dots. It's stringing together the data points of the clarity. This happened, that happened, this happened. This is what I want. This is what I've got. This is where I am. This is how I got here. Connection is connecting those dots, figuring out, why I'm here and how do I get from point A to point B, and who do I need to ask for help? How do I go from this place to that place if I don't have this step in the middle, etc.? Who should I be looking to? And talking to people and expressing the things that you're thinking, etc., and seeking objectivity, seeking people who've walked the path before, or at least people who've done certain legs of it, to learn from other people. Connection is asking, is reflecting, is what I'm doing right? Does it really reflect the truth of the scenario? So I use the example of someone who maybe has some things happening in their life that aren't ideal, choosing to either, get triggered, or not choosing to get triggered, but getting triggered into feeling like maybe something exploitative is happening, or maybe somebody is just being mean, like maybe somebody's cruel, because you've experienced cruelty before. And then either choosing, when you have that feeling, a red light goes off for whatever reason, you choosing whether you're going to go down the familiar path of like freaking out, or you're going to ask questions and reflect, is what I'm feeling correct right now, right? Is what I'm thinking correct? Because we're not in the heart yet. We're not really in the feelings, but you see how they bleed into one another. I gave you a little expose on like how you can use these to develop the heart. But just thinking like, am I thinking clearly? Am I seeing things clearly? Is, I have this fear that, somebody's going to do something bad to me. Like, is that actually what's happening right now? And I use the explanation. We had a nightmare tenant who, there was like a windowsill that needed to be fixed, which, when he came to see the place, I told him about the windowsill and that the window was already ordered, etc. Before he even noticed it or anything, because this was being taken care of, and it didn't do anything to the function of it or anything. It was just like, it didn't look nice. He like grasped onto this when there was some other like mishaps happening that were like honest mistakes that we were completely on top of fixing too. He like grasped onto this and just made it into this exploitative situation in his mind, that if he would have just grasped connection. I understand being triggered. I come from a traumatic past. I understand being triggered and being fearful that someone was going to, make life bad for you. But like seeking connection is how I one of the ways that I pulled myself out of it. Seeking connection allows me to understand that I'm thinking a certain way. I'm fearful because of what's happened in my past. However, I can see these signs and things in my present that makes it clear that this isn't the case. Or asking for a second opinion. Hey, I asked my husband, his freaking out, this tenant on me triggered me. I all of a sudden, my triggering was going back on brave, bold decisions I was making and thinking that was silly because, I wasn't worth it or whatever. Anyways, just being triggered into this fearfulness and this constricting mentality. And I made the connection that I started thinking these thoughts right after having to engage with this man. And so that connection allowed me to pull myself out of it. That connection allowed me to then ask someone, hey, this might be affecting me. This might be affecting my decision-making abilities right now. Perhaps I'm triggered. Perhaps this data point right here is actually connected to a past. It doesn't have anything to do with my future, perhaps, or does it? Do I need to take a different look at this? Do I need to wait before making a decision? Shall I look at some other information? Shall I just make different connections? Fit this into the broad scope of understanding. This is where people get brilliant. And I was talking about the brilliant minds. I juxtapose the brilliant, shining rock stars, right? Whether they're in art or in academics or, in science, in business, in parenting, just in every way, the brilliant, shining stars in beauty, everything. They're all constantly seeking connection. And I was juxtaposing this, me bumping into a group of aerospace engineers, rocket scientists, versus the people who are on the other spectrum, the other end of the spectrum, where they're totally egoic and they can't learn anymore because they constantly seek being right. So most of us are somewhere in between, obviously. But the where we want to go and where we want to get away from, where we want to go is towards that openness, that almost like striving to be almost objective, though subjective is absolutely very, very important. And I talk about the differences between the two. But actually, the personal powers typically fall into the two categories. There's subjective and objective. So subjective is clarity, objective is connection. I don't have time in this whole season to start discussing that. This is why it takes a year in the membership. Anyways, so we should be seeking that kind of objective truth, that openness to being able to really reassess and assess and reassess, right? Like that should be where we're going towards, as the person who is open to learning and relearning all the time. What we should be aiming against is going into things thinking we know shit. That's the first time that I have ever dropped a swear word on the Science and Spirit of Happy. So even in those situations, or especially in those situations where we're super heated, where we're triggered, like we really need to question, like, do I know ish right now? And the third personal power is in the heart, and that is feeling fiercely. Okay, the third personal power is fierceness. So when you are triggered into that state and you think, like, am I feeling clearly? Or am I thinking clearly? Is this right? The next step is dropping into fierceness. How does this feel? Because fierceness will tell you. Okay, fierceness will tell you in a lot of situations, in a situation like this where it's like a tenant landlord thing and it's brand new, you can pretty much stay in your objective, mind state assessing like what's happening here. I can look at like how is this person responding before this? Did they intend to do it, etc. Am I in danger here? Am I not? But when we're talking about deeper relationships and we're talking about especially like the parent-child relationship, or like your partner or whatever, feelings can really tell you a lot. How you feel can really, really tell you a lot about a situation. Does this person intend me harm? I talked about how different kinds of parenting can result in you dismissing your emotions, right? Being shut down shuts you down. I said that in the fierceness episode. And I also used the example of, a woman I saw at the pool whose child was crying, I'm not going to say unconsolably because I don't know how well she was trying to console him, but he was crying and not being consoled. He wasn't stopping crying. He was crying and crying. And she kept saying the words, I understand, I understand, I understand, I understand, I understand. But she was being totally dismissive while using words that weren't dismissive. So like when you drop into the heart, you know whether you're being dismissed or not, right? If you were that kid or if you're an adult in that situation where you're going to your boss and you're like, I can't take this anymore. Something really crazy is happening. I feel really crazy. And the boss is like, I understand, I understand, I understand, I understand. Meanwhile, completely ignoring everything that you're saying and not going to do anything about it and not even comforting you or anything. In your heart that you're being dismissed. You know it. Doesn't matter what they say. And this is the power of feeling fiercely. Also, your feelings will show you so many things. Another completely other facet of the whole theory is that we have these layers of mind, call it mind, whatever, but the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. And the subconscious is where feelings and energy lie. Okay, they bleed into one another. And the subconscious is kind of, according to my theory, the subconscious is an intermediary between the unconscious and the conscious. Unconscious, it holds so much information. You're constantly taking in so much information that you don't have any conscious access to whatsoever. And the majority of everything that's happening in your life, everything that you're doing is unconscious. So what your feelings and energy can tell you are little messages coming from the unconscious. So it's almost like, having a little bit of a crystal ball or being able to, have a little magic 8-ball where little messages are going to come up and foretell, the insights into the situation that from areas you can't see or whatever. They're also a really good indication of where you should go. But again, if you're feeling fiercely, you're finding your feelings, you're feeling your feelings, you're honoring your feelings, you're dropping into vulnerability, but you don't have clarity or connection. You could be a mess, right? But with clarity and connection, we can drop into fierceness now, and all of a sudden clarity and connection are supercharged. Because now we have a way to tell what's right or what's wrong with us. And we have a way to sort through all of the things that maybe our mind can't sort through. Well, you're saying you understand, but my mind's not satisfied. Why? Oh, checking in with heart here. You're a liar. You don't understand. You're not trying to understand. You're totally dismissing me. You're doing the exact opposite thing. Clarity and connection are supercharged. The next personal power is also of the heart, which is freedom. Okay, so this is the freedom to be yourself, the freedom to express yourself. And if you have that authenticity, if you have that vulnerability, getting into freedom is authenticity. But if you have that vulnerability with yourself within your fierceness and you can feel deeply how things make you feel, actually, okay, then that gives you empathy. So for all the people that are scared that if they, the idea of expressing yourself openly is dangerous, well, not if you have empathy.
You're not just going to like unleash on somebody and unload on them like for no reason in a way that's harmful. No, because you know your own feelings. You feel how things feel to you. And even if you do end up, going too far with something, somebody's feedback, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel that you made somebody feel some kind of way that doesn't feel good to you, and you don't want to do that. And then you have the freedom to express yourself and make up for it, right? Freedom supercharges fierceness. Fierceness supercharges freedom. So this is where big change starts to happen. When you get to this point where you're thinking clearly, you're able to get objective with it, you feel clearly, you're able to express yourself. People will leave at this point. Okay, people will leave. People that are not productive to your dream life will leave, and this is necessary. You must be brave. Okay, this is what vulnerability entails. But vulnerability requires boundaries. Okay, vulnerability requires boundaries. Brené Brown, in her research, she found that the most vulnerable people, first of all, she found the people that have belonging, people that have fulfillment in their lives, in their relationships, have vulnerability. That's the main key thing that sets them apart from the other people. And the people that have vulnerability, the most vulnerability, have the best boundaries. Boundaries are not, they're not, what do you call it, negotiable? Yeah, boundaries are not negotiable when we're talking about vulnerability. Vulnerability is not negotiable when we're talking about belonging. Belonging is not negotiable when we're talking about fulfillment for happiness, purpose, living the life of your dreams. Boundaries are in the realm of the next set, the next layer, when we get into soul or energy, whatever you want to call it. Soul belongs to the realm of energy. Energy belongs to the soul. Just like mind is thoughts and heart is feelings, soul is energy. So the fifth personal power is comfort. And that's really accepting where you're at. What does that have to do with boundaries? Let me get into it. So this is letting go of trying to be something, okay? Or it's accepting that you're both not that thing and that thing. That the true you, your highest version of you, is that thing, but you're also here fully where you are at right now, and you accept yourself there. You accept that this is where you're at, and you accept yourself openly because you love yourself, because you understand where you've been. You understand what you need to do to get to the place that you want to go. You understand how you feel and why. You're able to express that openly. And you accept your shortcomings. You accept what you don't have in order to move towards it. This is necessary. You can't skip ahead to getting the things. You have to drop into where you are now, into the discordant energy, into the misalignments, into the discordant, twisting energy. You cannot change it until you drop into it. You cannot do anything about it until you are ready to accept that it is happening. You have to embrace where you're at, and the energy that you are aligned with now. If you want to change course, you want to change the pattern, you got to drop into it now and accept it and stop judging it as being wrong. This is where boundaries come in, because the layer of soul are where your values sit. The reason you can't drop into who you are right now is because you're judging it as wrong according to some kind of values, which are probably not yours. Or they are yours, but they've been twisted in on yourself, and you think that you don't fit within your own sense of what's right anymore. So when you stop denying yourself and you release shame, which is in the next person of power, but shame really constricts your energy. It's the major constrictor of energy. And you just drop into either so what and letting it go. So what? I, didn't act from a place of integrity in that place that I was at. I was in pain, or, I was afraid, or I'm going to make up for that. Okay, so what? I'm overweight, and, I'm going to a place where I'm not going to be overweight anymore. So what? I did these things that I'm not proud of in these relationships, but I'm going to make up for that. Or, those people weren't great people for me either, and I'm going to build new relationships in the future. Okay? Comfort. I accept myself. I accept the things that I did. I accept all the things that I'm not. I accept that there's more to me, and I'm okay with being human and growing and learning and healing towards that, which leads to the next personal power of the soul is confidence, where you're actually aligning with who you actually are, your true self. And on the realm of energy, the realm of emotions, two things can be in different places at the same time. We're talking about like quantum physics, and this is the layer of that quantum reality, that level of reality that is beyond linear comprehension. So in the realm of soul, you both are and are not the person that you want to be. Getting into confidence while getting into also self-acceptance is how you bridge the gap between those two things. The way that you get to be the person that you want to be is not just accepting the person that you are now, because some people will absolutely lash back against this and say it's totally self-defeating for you to just accept where you're at now, because that means that you're not moving forward towards the thing that you want to be. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about accepting where you are now so that you can get to where you want to be. I'm talking about plotting yourself on the GPS in order to draw a path to where you want to go. And it's not exactly the same. I use the GPS analogy in the mind with clarity and connection. It's not exactly the same in the soul level. It's more like teleporting or something similar, but it's accepting both things as being true right now. It's being in both places at the same time. Yes, you truly are all of those things that you dream of, all those things that you want to be. That's who you actually are. That's who you are. It's who you are. But you can't be just there, okay? You want to talk to some spiritual bypassing people? They're there. I am perfect. I am connected. I am everything. I have never done anything wrong. I cannot do anything wrong. I don't want to hear if you think that I've done something wrong, because actually I'm just going to use that to make myself feel better because you're like a bad person and I am so like above this. I'm such a good person. I'm such a good person. You can't just be the person that you want to be. You also have to be the person who makes mistakes, the person who messes up, the person who doesn't act in their integrity all the time, the person who thinks weird things, who has weird judgments, who has stuff in their heart that doesn't, align with the person that they really truly want to be, the loving person that they want to be. You have to be both things in order to get to be the place where you're the rock star, where you're aligned, where you really are the person that you want to be, living in alignment with your values, living your purpose. When we get into the next personal powers, living in abundant, wonderful life. Okay, you have to accept all of the ways that you aren't that thing, as well as align with the fact that you are that thing, that you're worth it. Self-worth, self-acceptance. So the last two personal powers are in the level of body, and body includes the environment. Okay, body is things, body is people, body is even what happens in relationships. When we get into the layer of body, the layer of form, this is really where all of the other sets, all of the personal powers, all of the other layers come to fruition. This is when we see them in these layers. So the first personal power is beauty, living a life of beauty. This is taking action to call in things that make you feel good. And this isn't just physical stuff, right? The physical, when we talk about body, is really, on the realm of like quantum reality, vibrating energy. But in the realm of like real sort of practicality, it really is like the way that you see things colors reality. The way that you feel colors reality. The energy perhaps creates the whole shebang, but it definitely will state how you react, right? The nervous system is on the level of energy and soul. So the physical is like taking physical action or making physical change has to do with all of the other layers. So when we're taking action to call in things that make us feel good, to live a beautiful life, we're talking about mind, we're talking about heart, we're talking about soul. We're talking about living vibrantly, which embraces all of it. So we're also annexing all that feels ugly because it's not necessary. And the last personal power is stepping into bounty. This is stepping into abundance. And this is where discipline comes from and motivation. This is how you either have been influenced towards a growth mindset or a fixed mindset, like how your parents saw the personal power of bounty, like how aligned they were with that personal power of bounty will dictate how you behave in the world, what kind of, grit and resilience you have, the kind of discipline and motivation you've developed, and whether you have a growth mindset from the parent who lived in the abundant world or a fixed mindset, the parent who like impinged a scarcity, lack, reality onto you. So reality is really, there's some objective truths about reality, but in a lot of ways it's subjective. And in a lot of ways that we're told to face reality, it's actually totally subjective and coming from what I call a reality IQ deficit or deficiency. So I talk about reality IQ at length in the membership, and I touch on it in the book for sure. But for now, it's really important for you to understand that if you had that cynical parent that made you think that it is what it is and you get what you get, right? You're only as smart as you are. You either are capable or you're not, or you're either good looking or you aren't. And, the world favors these people and doesn't favor those people, etc. If you had that parent, like, I need you to understand that this is, it's probably a mental health issue. I don't deal with mental health issue, or I don't deal with mental illness like at all. That is for psychiatrists and specialists and professionals in the field of psychology. That is not my field. I do how to get to, really good mental health, how to get into vibrance, how to live a really wonderful life and get happy. But I just need you to know that cynicism, it doesn't reflect reality. What that is what I call a reality IQ deficiency. And that definitely needs to be healed and cleared because it isn't what it is. Like we always tell kids, you can do whatever you want to do. And the reason that we tell kids you can be whatever you want to be, but you can do whatever you want to do is because that's true. And it really is true. And then we get to adulthood and we think, well, no, I can't do these things because X, Y, Z. And it's like, well, yeah, you can't do these things now, but it isn't because of X, Y, Z. It's because of bad parenting. It's because of having a parent with a reality IQ deficit or at worst, a reality IQ deficiency that restricted the way that you think, the way that you feel, the way that you express yourself, create, the values that you live by, and the way that you live. Like our parents level of wealth dictates our level of wealth. Our parents' level of education dictates our level of education. Their relationship status dictates our relationship status. Their relationship success or not success dictates our relationship success or not success. Their health dictates our health. And this is all a choice. Yes, there are determining factors like genetics, but there are also totally malleable factors like epigenetics that show us that we can actually that our genes express themselves based on them being in relationship with our environment, etc. Like, I'm not saying that you can just think a thought and create an entire new reality. What I am saying is that there are two sides to this, and the deterministic side is one half, and all the other half is hugely wide open. And even when we're talking on that linear, rational side that tends towards determinism, it's still open with possibility. Okay? So there's no objective argument that someone can make to say, you are what you are and it is what it is. Unless you're dropping into the personal power of comfort, being like, it is what it is, I am what I am, and I can be whatever I want to be, and I can create, whatever kind of reality I want to live in, then like this stuff just doesn't have any place. It's for sure didn't have any place with a child, okay? Because they really were open. They really were in this realm of possibility. That's why we tell it to children, you can be whatever you want to be, you can do whatever you want to do, because they could. And at that age, you were given feedback that said that you couldn't. And then all of a sudden you couldn't. Henry Ford, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right. For sure, for children, it is. So we can undo that, okay? The world is full of abundance. Living in your personal power of bounty is having all of your needs met, okay? This is like via like strategy, not just like hanging out on the beach and hoping a coconut falls down from your tree. However, the universe does get on your team, right? That realm of like openness and possibility and magic. It happens, okay? That like manifestation stuff. There's some truth to that. There's also the whole linear, rational side where you have to make a plan and stick by it and have some discipline and, be resilient and etc. That's also absolutely part of it, right? But in order to like get this vitality, we have to like eliminate drains on it, and we have to take healthy action. That means supporting wellness and well-being and vitality on both levels, both layers, right? This is like living productively, but also living in the magic. So this is how you get everything you want. You can do it. It can be easy. I hope I haven't been too confusing in this, trying to like string together a whole year's worth of study in, 20 or 30 minutes here. But this is entirely possible. Like, it is entirely possible and even probable and easy. It's way easier than staying the same to come up against these things that are holding you back and live the life that you want to live. So the book, How to Not Be Like Your Parents, goes through each of these steps, and it has exercises in quite a bit more detail than it is included in the podcast. But not being like our parents, the aim to how to not be like our parents is to actually have everything that we want. Is to go back and recreate, the person that we would have loved to have been created as to begin with. Because your dream is your destiny. The things that you want, this is your purpose, this is what you're here to live. And the world is absolutely open to you living it. It wants you to live it. Progress is our nature. It is what we do. So you can do it. The law of attraction might be pretty narcissistic, but the desire within us that it tintillates, that we could create our whole reality and it's just up to us to decide, it's real. Now we have to factor in the places that we've come from, the way that people have affected us, and the fact that everyone has free will around us, and that we have to, work within the confines of of the laws of nature here. But there's also this magical force that is propelling you towards everything that you want. And the very fact that you want it is the signifier that this is where you should go. Because everything is perfect. Everything is perfectly created. And even now, when we're totally imperfect and out of alignment, we're in perfect alignment for the path that we're destined to be on. But you do have free will, and you can make a choice. You can make a choice to propel yourself towards healing, growth, strengthening towards your greatest life, and decide how far you're going to go down that road. Listening to this podcast is a big step. I really implore you to not just get the book, but get into the membership if you really want to do this stuff. But the book is an excellent place to start too. So we take 4 weeks off between seasons. So I will see you next season when we're talking about parenting. And I can't wait for that. Until then, please get at me on social media. I'm there every day talking my talk and walking my walk. And I would love to see you on the email list as well. So until I see you in one of those places, or I see you here next season, good day, yeah.